Liza P is now out, and Sinus Infection, be damned. I'm going to talk about it because it is an absolute amazing game. I love it so much. I haven't gotten to play it nearly as much as I want. You're looking at about maybe 5 or 6 hours into the game now. Obviously, not feeling very well has set me back some, so I didn't buy any of the collector editions or pre-orders or any of that stuff, so I got it on Game Pass day one. You're watching me play it from my PC, and of course it's an ultra-wide. It looks amazing. If I could give any criticism to the aesthetics, I really wish they had implemented ray tracing. I feel like a game like this would just scream with ray tracing. Although, if you are playing it on a television that supports HDR, you're going to be in for a treat, because when you have a nice OLED screen, it does pop a lot, particularly in a lot of the shadows and corners of the map. So really do enjoy the aesthetic of this game, just maybe a slight oversight there. And I know that this game does run on console at 60 frames per second at a locked 1080p, which is fine, but man, I would have really liked 120 frame per second mode. The combat in this game is just so fluid. I feel like it screams for that. And I've played all of the Soulsbourne games, and I think, as many people would agree, Bloodborne is kind of the gold standard when it comes to that aggressive combat. And this game absolutely rewards you for playing aggressively, which I like. A lot of these games turn into stamina battles, where you just kind of hold up your big shield, you let the enemy hit you, you roll away, rinse and repeat. And thankfully, in this game, the way that it works, if you get hit, there's a small window of opportunity for you to get your health back by attacking immediately. And they have the perfect parry system, which if you block at just the right time, you can unleash devastating attacks. So much so, you can actually destroy enemy weapons, including boss weapons, if you perfect parry them enough. So not only are you going to be rewarded for doing more damage by parrying, you're also going to be rewarded by making the battle easier, because their swords will literally break in two, or whatever parts of their bodies they hit you with, because you're going to be fighting some crazy, crazy puppets. The name of this game, Lies of P, has a lot to do with Pinocchio, and it is the tale of Pinocchio and Geppetto, told in a very, very different manner. In this universe, Geppetto has created puppets to essentially aid humanity in everyday tasking. Puppets are police. Puppets are teachers. Puppets do all of the manual labor that humanity doesn't want to do. One day, mysteriously, the puppets enter this frenzy and go bananas and start essentially liquidating society and start killing people very, very, very quickly. I just want to point out right here, there is actually a jump mechanic, which I did not find out about until later. So you can actually run and jump over that gap instead of me just face planting into the lava pit below. But so the puppets go wild, right? And it's up to you as a kind of hybrid between being a puppet, but with the ability to lie. Because that's one of the core tenets, is puppets can't lie. You kind of have this ability to bridge the gap between humanity and puppetry, and you serve as the agent of humanity's will to go out and basically cleanse this land of evil. There's a city called Krat, and there's a giant hotel, which is kind of the last refuge of humanity. You'll set up your base of operations there, collecting various vendors through your adventure, building up your base of operations, which will allow you to do some really cool things, which I'll talk about in a moment. The goal is to obviously go out and defeat evil. All the maps are interconnected. They're linear. They're not nearly as designed. They're not designed as well as a game like Dark Souls, for example, unfortunately, where the maps have lots of lines and twists and turns. They're fairly linear. There'll always be some kind of little shortcut or cheat sheet that allows you to essentially go back and get to another part of the level faster. There's tons of waypoints that allow you to replenish your health potions and reset the enemies to farm for more, funny money. In this game, they call it Ergo, but it's the souls material that allows you to basically be the currency of the game. But for the most part, the map does follow a very linear path. And depending on what part of the world you're in, you can look ahead and see the place you're about to explore and look behind you and see what's behind you. So the skyboxes in this game are breathtakingly beautiful, particularly when you get to Act 3, when you get outside the factory and you kind of get to take a look at everything you've done so far. It really does paint a beautiful picture of this world, and it's designed so well in that Bella Epoque era, which I had to Google. But that's actually the art style here, this period of France. And the enemies are not grotesque and horrifying like you would expect in a Dark Souls game, but they're much more mechanical and horrifying in that nature. Almost like psychotic nutcracker type. And as you find little pieces of lore in the world, whether through item descriptions or meeting other NPCs or just by visual inspection, you'll get a very, very good sense of appreciation of kind of what has happened to this world and where the story is going. I don't know if there's going to be any wild twists or turns yet. I haven't seen anything. There are some major decision points that you have to make, which will impact whether or not you're a good boy or a bad boy, which I am sure has a morality weight to it at some point. But for the most part, I think if you want to play this game as a kind of standard, Soulsbourne type experience, you're going to have that ability. Now, what makes this game so fun is they've really learned from a lot of the previous games, and I think they've put such a fun, unique spin on it on their own, particularly when it comes to combat. As I mentioned, you already have that system that's in place that allows you to, gain back a little bit of health, which is nice. Your health potions in this game, think of the old Estus flask in Dark Souls. They make an appearance here. The difference is after you use all of them, you enter this mode called Discharge Mode. And during Discharge Mode, you actually have buffs that will actively change how you play. You may do more damage. You may receive less damage. You may have some other perks that change the way your character performs. Every time you hit an enemy, that flask begins to recharge and can eventually be reused, which is a really cool system. So there's probably some really good theory crafter builds out there who have decided, hey, what actually would be the best thing in the world is let's go ahead and actually build a system in which we kind of actively lower our health and intentionally get hit, so we can enter this kind of like frenzy mode, which is really, really cool. As far as combat's concerned, weapons are broken down into hilts and into like blades, or the actual like blunt part of the weapon, the saw blade, or in my case, a giant wrench. I've seen fire axes, stun batons. There's a lot of weapons. And depending how you mix and match those weapons will not only depend on your statistics, but will also change your moveset. So if you want to be somebody like me who's using a giant two-handed weapon that absolutely just smashes people to bits, you absolutely can. If you want to modify it just a little bit to make it a little faster, you could do that too. And the combinations are infinite in that sense, and there's no penalty to experiment to find the set that you like the best. With the hilt particularly, the hilt will actually change your moveset. So it'll determine what kind of attacks you do, and you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of my special meter what kind of special attacks you do. So if you really like a particular moveset, you can put that hilt on a new weapon, and you can play that with a sword or with a baton or anything else. And it opens up combat in such a riveting, exciting way. Additionally, you have your arm, which you have a robotic left arm, which has a litany of attachments as well. There's a grappling hook that'll pull enemies towards you to hit them. There's flamethrowers. There's rocket launchers. There's just like a giant like Superman punch. There's lots of different things that you can do that will change how your weapon interacts. And they're fun because they can be modified as well. And they open up combat additionally in a lot of other ways too. So lots of combat options here, a lot more dense than I think a lot of people had expected. You have your traditional armor and your weight rating. The more weight that you have, the slower you roll, but you may have more defense and that sort of thing. So there's always going to be a trade-off in how you want to build your character. There's no wrong answer. And if you don't like the way that a weapon is designed, you can find very limited materials to slightly alter its performance, such that it scales with a statistic that you find more valuable. Recall that in a lot of the other Dark Souls games, you'd have letters associations. So in this case, if you had something that was strength of letter F, every point of strength you put into it wouldn't really necessarily do a lot. But if it was a strength rate of S, for example, you would do significantly more damage with each point you put in there. So you can, again, really customize. Now, those are limited. I've only found a few of those cranks to actually change the build that I like, but it does absolutely exist. And for that reason, I absolutely adore everything about this game in terms of just the combat and the customization. Traditional Dark Souls game experience here with very minimalistic music, very cryptic and not say confusing NPC quests, but very, very obscure in kind of what they're telling you. The world is intentionally being secretive and telling you things slowly over time. The NPCs are slowly building up their trust in you. You're slowly beginning to learn a little bit more of the universe and why and what your role in it is. A lot of the item descriptions carry a lot of value with them as well, so it's important to explore, read all the item descriptions, understand little snippets of the universe. And every level itself, just in the design of the level, also tells a very interesting story of what happened there, particularly with the puppets overthrowing humanity. And as you begin to kind of fight back, as I said, you'll build up your base of operations, Hotel Krat, where you will begin to, get some good services going, and you'll find more NPCs that are willing to help you and customize your character even further. So absolutely adore this game. It is an absolute gem. I knew when I played the beta a long time ago, it had a free beta, kind of like a demo. I was sold on it. I did a review on it then, and I said it was a day one purchase for me. Thankfully, it came to Game Pass, so I didn't have to buy it. I still might buy it anyway just to support the developer, because I think I want to play this on PlayStation at some point. I'm currently playing it on my PC and my Xbox Series X, but I feel like this game would feel really good with a DualSense controller, especially the Pro controller in hand. I feel like that's kind of been my Dark Souls stick to play with, essentially. So I may get into this again at some point. I'm going to play through the story at first now. I'm so backlogged on all my games. I'll eventually get back to this one, but I'm pretty sure I want to buy this just to have this, because this is a special game that I can see myself playing again. And, I do occasionally, believe it or not, still pull out the old Dark Souls games and, scream my way through them over hundreds of hours of grinding. And I remember playing the original Dark Souls with Brent on travel for the when I had the Xbox 360, and just so I could get 2 hits from Gwen and not die. Grinded for hours and hours and hours on that game. And I don't think Lies of P is going to be that aggressive on the grinding aspect, but what I do think is that it's challenging you in just the right ways. A lot of the quality changes of things we wanted to see in other games have made their way here. When you fight a boss and die, your ergo actually spawns outside the boss room. So if you're not quite ready, you can grab your souls or your funny money and go back and level up more. You don't lose them forever, which is nice, because a lot of times you're trapped in these loops. Like, I have to fight the boss now to try to keep getting back my souls to try to continue the game. You don't have that anymore. Summons are very simple. They're NPC summons. They spawn right outside major boss rooms. The materials you need to farm them are nearby, so you're always going to have that help if you need it. There's always a save point very, very close to a boss room, so you don't have to run for a long time and do a gauntlet, essentially, to kind of work your way into a boss room, which is really nice. And there's other quality of life changes too that just make sense. This game was designed by people who clearly played the original Dark Souls and loved it, and decided to take that formula, put a very unique aesthetic on it and make it their own. And I think they've absolutely succeeded. If you are a fan of Dark Souls games at all, or even if you're not, if this aesthetic speaks to you, this is a very small sample of some of the beautiful landscapes you're going to encounter in this world. The enemy types, the platforming, the riddles that you have to solve, the NPCs that you talk with, all of them are fun, they're unique, and it's a rewarding experience. I cannot say enough good things about this game. I highly, highly, highly recommend Lies of P. I'll probably have a video at some point in the future when I complete it, kind of like my final thoughts on the game, show you my build at the end, kind of the route that I took. Seems like I'm going to probably stick with this big weapon because I like it a lot. I haven't found anything that's really changed my mind on that quite yet. But who knows? You know, this game is just one roll away from the perfect weapon that I didn't know I needed, or the perfect move set I didn't know I wanted. But that remains to be seen. But that'll wrap up my official review of Lies of P. If you have Game Pass, do yourself a favor and check it out. And even if you don't, consider buying and supporting this. This is one of the best Souls games I have ever played. And let me tell you, I've played them all. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.